ka mēs varam lēnām sākt, kamēr vēl citi pievienojas. Skatāmies, tagad redzam, ka ir 2 kameras, 3, 4 kameras forši.
Redzam, Aldis, Māris, Niks, Katrīna, Luīze.
Tā kā, ja citi arī varētu ieslēgt kameras, tas būtu ļoti forši, kā jūs atceraties pirmajā reizē, kad mēs satikāmies virtuāli, tad mēs rādījām jums tos online lekciju noteikumus, un viens no tiem bija, ka ir foršāk visiem, ja ir ieslēgtas kameras. Un tā kā mums te RBS katru dienu visas lekcijas studentiem notiek online, tad arī paši studenti jau atzīst un stāsta, ka viņi paši iemācās vairāk, kad ieslēdz kameru. Tā kā tāds mazs triks, lai iemācītos vairāk.
Un neuztraucies par frisūru, tāpēc, ka mēs saprotam, ka tagad jūs nevarat iet pie frisetavas šajās dienās. Un tagad viss kārtībā. Un kurš būs šodien?
Šodien mums būs lektors Aldis Greitāns. Viņam lekcija būs angļu valodā, bet jūs jau pie tā esat pieraduši, tā kā tā nebūs problēma. Un lekcija būs par biznesa modeli Canvas. Bet pirms tam es gribēju pirmkārt atvainoties par izmaiņām, kas mums notika ar lekciju laikiem. Tā kā mums bija mazliet miscommunication, par komunikāciju mēs arī runāsim šajās lekcijās. Tā kā kaut kas, ko paši mācam, bet vēl vienmēr var darīt arī labāk. Tā kā piedodiet par to. Un piektdienas lekcija ir tā, kas notiks 2. Jūs arī par to saņemsiet vēlreiz informāciju, bet piektdien tad mēs tiekamies 2 dienā. Un, jā, vēlreiz atvainojot par pēdējā brīža izmaiņām.
Kurā gadījumā lekcijā ir ierakstīta, tā kā jūs un tie, kā nevarēja šodien tikt 4, viņi varēs skatīties. Jā, un atceries par to slaidu, mēs viņus lasām un arī par balvu. Jā, tāpēc man liekas, mēs aizmirsam to atgādināt.
Mēs teicām sākumā, ka ir balva, un jūs noteikti redzējāt arī, kad jūs pieteicāties, kāda ir tā balva. Bet mēs atgādinām, ka balva ir 10% studiju maksas atlaide Rīgas biznesa skolā 1. mācību gadam. Tā kā mēs aktīvi sekojam, kur iesniedz tos one-pagerīšus pēc lekcijām, un arī kuri aktīvi jautā jautājumus, kuri iesaistās, arī palīdz lekcijām būt vēl labākām ar saviem jautājumiem. Tā kā esiet aktīvi, mēs sekojam līdzi, un jā.
Un Aldis, kādi no jums varbūt jau zināt, Aldis ir ļoti pieredzējušais gan pasniedzējs, gan uzņēmējs, gan konsultants. Viņš ir konsultējis ļoti daudz uzņēmumu un vēl joprojām to dara, īpaši finanses nozare. Jā, tā kā ļoti liela pieredze, tagad tāpat kā ar mani un ar Pīteru izmantojot šo iespēju, jūs dod ļoti daudz jautājumu.
Jā, tā kā lai forša lekcija.
Forša, Aldis, tava. Mēs šeit izslēdzam.
Yeah, paldies. Okay, I'll speak English. I think that everybody is fine with that. And should you have any questions, you can, first of all, you can just unmute your microphones and ask the questions online. Basically, I am teaching in high school, and high school lecturers are used to that students can ask the questions at any moment, and every lecturer in a high school and university is fine with that. Well, if you don't want to speak up front, you can ask your questions in chat. Of course, you can write this in Latvian, but also in English. No problem with that, and I'll answer also on those questions which are written in chat. Okay. So I will share my slides with you. Meanwhile, about myself, as Claudia already told, I'm assistant professor in Riga Business School, and I'm also master program director in Riga Business School. But before that, I worked quite considerable time in Latvian commercial banks, and also in the industry which is called fintech today. And after that, I spent quite some time, in consulting. But meanwhile, actually, I'm teaching in Riga Business School in and out from roughly 97. So I have also quite considerable experience in lecturing. Okay, so I'm invited to tell you today about business model canvas. Actually, I assume that many of you already have heard this this term, but let me start with from the distance. Actually, quite a lot of businessmen in their life have been asked to write or to present to banks or to shareholders. They have been asked to present business plan. Even nowadays, when I'm asking managers have they ever written business plan, it turned out that quite a few of them have been writing business plans. The same about me. I've written them quite a few in my life. Actually, question to you. Sorry, wrong button. Question to you, actually. How do you think? What's good and what's bad in business plans? Anyone, you can switch off your mics. Switch on your mics.
Well, maybe like you can see all the things like planned out on the paper, but maybe it's not always the same in the real life.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Basically, I usually quote at this point Mike Tyson. Probably you heard about him. This is boxer who was at the top of his popularity in 80s and 90s last century. Quite impressive guy, and he has famous quote. He's told that everyone has a plan until you punch him in the nose. Of course, this is applicable, at least he was applying this to boxing, but since that, this quote has migrated also in business and in management environment, and it's heard there very often. That's true, actually. When I'm asking my friends and colleagues, and also when I'm recalling my experience, never ever anything happened according to business plan. Any good ideas why it is it so? Anyone?
Something unpredictable happened, some obstacles in the way and stuff like that.
Yeah. Is Catherine the only active person here? Anyone else also?
Everything can never be planned, like exactly, precisely.
Yeah, actually, right. Basically, it's really hard to plan for every minor details, for everything which can happen. And we are living in quite turbulent times, and you can see that everything changes pretty fast. Actually, even this lecture, a couple of weeks ago, it was planned that you will be in Riga Business School and not online. Yeah, it just changed, and right now we see we have to look at each other on computer screen. Any ideas what's good about business plan?
I think it will show you what you really need for your business, like the amount of money, and it will just give you like a very good overview of your plan.
Yeah. Okay, good. Anyone else?
You have some sort of vision about it.
Yeah. Well, basically, when you are working, okay, probably you will never ever in your life work on business plan, but those persons which have been working on business plans, they admit that at some moment when preparing business plans, they recognize how complicated, in fact, the business is. And in fact, in the moment you are touching one let's say, area of your company. For instance, in the moment you are changing something in operations, in production, all of a sudden you recognize that it also calls for changes in other companies' areas, like, for instance, in product delivery, in marketing, in product itself. And at some moment, people start recognizing that in the business everything is very interrelated, and changes in one place call for changes in other places. And actually, this is also the real complexity, the real problem in writing business plans. It's really difficult to get everything together in logical sequence. And that was the problem businesses and managers of the businesses and also owners of the businesses have been facing for quite some time. And actually, quite some time ago, the concept of business model was developed. And here we are coming to business model canvas and business model, and we should distinguish between business model and business model canvas. We'll talk about business model a bit later, actually in a few seconds, but we should keep in mind that business model canvas is the way how to represent, how to show in visual mode your business model. Business model canvas is a tool, while business model is something different. How do you think, what is business model?
It's the structure of the overall business. I don't know, like what things do you need to get or create to get successful start, maybe?
Yeah, very good, very good. Actually, another question, why the business exists? Why people do business?
Because they
To
like
make
it
money.
and for money.
For money. Yeah, in fact, businesses mostly are done to earn some money. And business model, to put it short, actually shows how a company creates and captures the value, how it generates the revenue. And basically, business models are used to understand the interrelations and how it works inside the business. Let's use the word dynamics, how one business part, one company's part influences other company's part. And business model, to cut it short, basically, I like more this definition. Business model shows how an organization, because not only companies, but also non-governmental organizations very often are earning money, and then some other kind of institutions, how an organization earns the money, first of all, in profitable way. Because if you are not profitable, then basically your business model is not serious, and then you will soon cease to exist. Then the next business model shows how a company or an organization earns the money in repeatable way. How do you think, why this repeatable is important, and what actually does it mean?
Long-term money earning.
Yeah, good ideas. Anyone else?
It just shows that it is consistent, so it's actually that's the goal.
Actually, repeatable means that basically we will have this business not only today, but also tomorrow and within 1 year and for a longer period. Because if we just do one-time sales, we generate one-time revenue, that's not actually a business. It's selling something. Like, for instance, I'm selling the bicycle, which I don't need. That's not a business. Business should be repeatable. We should be able, in the same manner, in the same method, to earn the money also in the next periods, in the next time periods. And those actually are two most important prerequisites of business model. And then there is third one, it's scalable, which is actually suggested but not required part of the business model. Scalable means that you are able to grow the business and, let's say, go global, or follow growing market demand, or growing market at all, or move your business to other markets. Basically, here we are talking about other geographical markets. But this scalability, the need for the scalability, really depends on your ambitions. It really depends on your ambitions. If your ambitions are just, let's say, do good thing and do some business and earn some decent money for living, your business should not necessarily should be scalable, not necessarily. But if you have global ambitions and you want to conquer the world, at least in some area with some business, then it should be scalable, and you should be able to easily to grow the business. Like for instance, you all should know Starbucks, right? Starbucks actually started as a hobby. Some guys in Seattle in the United States were working in advertisement agency, and they liked good coffee. And at some moment they created small coffee shop where they actually were selling coffee beans, different blends of roasted coffee beans. And initially the coffee was handed out for free just to sample those roasts, those blends. Yeah, and basically at some moment guys decided that this is the business. They went scalable, and in their case they developed the concept of the coffee shops. They developed how it should work out. They developed logistic chains and everything. And it was quite difficult because, you know, the coffee shops, you need physical presence. You need to go to a particular city where you want to create your coffee shop. You need to find the right place, and you need to hire people, bring equipment, bring furniture, do everything. In some cases, like with the IT business, if you are selling software, for instance, it's much more easier. You don't have to establish, very often you don't have to establish physical presence. You can scale through internet, and it's much more easier. So scalability, if you have global ambitions, pretty much depends on your business. Is this physical, or is this business virtual? Well, back to business model canvas. Actually, we have this nice picture which looks pretty good, but it's more like illustration, and it has probably not that big value as a tool, or as I told, as a tool. This one is better. Here we see 9 fields of the business which are important for the business, and of course to be profitable, to earn some revenue. What do we need? We need customers. Yeah, we need customers who are ready to pay us some money. If we have customers, we should have some value proposition. We should have something which is valuable for those customers, for which they are actually ready to pay some money. But that's also not enough. Basically, we somehow should let customers to know that we have this value for them. We should reach them. We should have some relationships with them. And therefore, between our value proposition and customer segments, here we have customer relationships. And this also is not sufficient, because somehow we have to deliver our goods, our products, our services. And that's why we are talking about channels. And very often channels are the very important part of the value proposition, because people like convenience, people like simplicity, and this could be part of the value proposition. So if you are looking at business model canvas, then this right part, value proposition and customer segments and channels, this is the part which generates us revenue. It's about revenue streams, because we are selling value proposition to customers, and we are using customer relationships and channels to sell this stuff, This generates us money. But there is opposite side. If we are producing something, if we are delivering some value, we need to generate this, we need to produce it. And there is the left part of a business model canvas. And this very often is what I call forgotten part of business model. And very often people are very excited about this part and they are forgetting about the left part. My speculation is that it is much more attractive to work with customers to develop creative ideas about value proposition, about customer relationships, work in marketing, and it's much more attractive than to think about some kind of production. But we never should forget about such things like key activities or how we generate this value, key resources, what do we need to generate this value, and also partners, those parts which are important for our business. How do you think, why this left part is as important as the right part?
Because it will bring you money.
Could you elaborate? Because
the key partners, key activities, and key resources are like the main thing to get revenue, to get the money.
Okay. I think I'm getting your point, but just let me rephrase you. Basically, in a way, they are getting our money because we need them, because we need those things to generate the revenue here. Why they are important? We should remember that this is the part which generates our expenditures, which generates our costs. And if you remember a couple of minutes ago, I've been telling that business model should be profitable. So we need to understand this part as good as the right part to understand our cost, because profit is revenue less cost. Yeah, and if we have no profit, we will not live for long. So we should not forget about this part. Okay, it looks that we have a couple of questions in the chat. Just let me check. Those are answers on my questions. Okay, yeah, guys, you're right. Okay, so let me go through particular parts of business model canvas, and we should start with value proposition and customer segments. And here we have one more canvas. Anyone has seen this? No. Okay, those are value proposition canvas. And basically, this is another tool which is used when you are talking or when you are thinking about your value proposition, when you are thinking about your customer segments. And basically, the idea here is that your value proposition should do some customer job. There is famous saying that customers are not coming to the hardware store to buy a drill. They don't need a drill, they need a hole. They need to make a hole something. And there is this famous concept that basically your value proposition should do some job for the customer. And if you have your business idea, you should try to understand what is the job your business idea, your proposed product or service is doing for customer. What are the pains? What are the problems actually you are solving, or what are the pains you are relieving for the customer? And what are gains? What's that what improves in customer's life when customer is using your value proposition, using your product or service? And here is the service part, and you should understand how your product and service matches with the customer's job, to be done. What are those features of your product and service which relieve customer pains? And what are the gains? What are so-called gain creators? What are those features, those things in your product or service which create customer gains? And is there a match between your customer jobs to be done, pains and gains, and match between your product and service and what you think are gain creators and pain relievers of your service? This is the way you can try to think when you are thinking about your customers and thinking about your value proposition. Basically, those are the questions you should ask to yourself when you are developing your business model or when you are analyzing your business model. So, starting with the customer segments, basically, the first and most important question is, what are the customer jobs to be done? Very often you can recognize those jobs just by recognizing your customers, your people behavior. Then you always should remember that very, very rarely any product or every service fits to everyone or is needed by everyone in the world. This is a very rare case. Actually, I even may have problems to name this type of the product. So you should understand that you are talking about group of people, specific group, which has this need, which has this pain, or which want to have certain gains, or which have this job to be done. And you should ask them to whom we are creating this value. And that's your customer segment. That's why we are talking about segment, not all the people. And what I want to stress is it's also very important to understand what's the archetype of your customer. The archetype is basically description, or if you can imagine, let's say, physical look of that person, or even attribute your offer to particular person you know. And this is important because at some moment you should understand how this person thinks, where this person walks, where this person is in particular time of the day, or particular time of the week, or particular time of the season. And this is important later on to try to understand what type of customer relationships you should create, how and when you can reach your customer, and how and when you can deliver your product and service. Talking about value proposition, basically those are matching questions. What is the problem we are helping to solve to our customer? What is the value we deliver to our customer? Remember, we are talking here about customer pain relievers or customer gain creators, and naturally what customer needs your product is satisfying. Okay, guys, any questions at this moment? No. Okay, then let's move ahead. The next, customer relationships. Actually, this is as important, and very often this is part of the value proposition. So it's as important as value proposition itself. Can you name any industries where customer relationship is a big part of the value proposition? Any good ideas?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Can you name any industry, any business where customer relationships is an important part of the value proposition itself?
I would
Maybe
say in restaurant business.
Yeah, I would like to say that too.
Yeah,
that's my thoughts.
That's one example. What about banks? Basically, customer relationships are important. Okay, everyone hates banks, but actually our money is in banks. Yeah, and that's something.
My experience says that like it's very important in car dealers,
Okay.
like how you treat the customer.
Yeah, car dealers too, actually, right?
Maybe in markets as well, like in central tirgus or.
Okay, yeah, basically what you are already telling is that even in such a small things like sort of kiosk in the market, it is important to this kiosk in the market customer relationships, because if you will cheat those people and they don't trust you, the people will never come back again to you. But in such industries like medical industry, for instance, where you literally sometimes entrust your life to doctors, in banks where your money is actually customer relationships is big part of the of the value proposition. Louis in chat is writing that practically in every industry. In a way, yes, but actually, you should have some. In every industry, you should have some customer relationships. Just we are talking here about the depth of those relationships. Yeah, but Louise is right. Okay, then the very, very important question: how customers do make their purchase decision? I will not go here in the depths, but basically you should understand that in very rare cases the purchase decision is spontaneous. Usually the process starts with the fact that people recognize they have particular need, and then the part of the decision-making process, purchase decision-making process, is some information gathering and comparing of different offers of different things, and only then the decision itself is coming or not coming. It depends, of course. So we should understand that there is a process which precedes purchase, and also we should understand that the purchase decision usually happens under specific, all this process usually happens under specific situations and under specific requirements, and you should understand when those requirements, when those conditions arise. Okay, and then the most important, once you've got the customer, when you've got that, how to keep it and how to grow your customers, because you want your business to be repeatable and you want customers coming back, and you should understand how to stay in touch with your customers and what will encourage them to come back. And by growing your customer, well, first of all, how you deepen your relationships, but also how you will increase your sales to your customers. Are you selling something extra, or are you encouraging to do repeated purchase or things like that? Yeah, okay. Somehow the slides are lagging. Okay, channels. Okay, the important question, and I mentioned this already several times, what are the channels? How we can reach our customers? In some cases, in the easy cases, actually, it's internet. However, also the internet is probably not that easy as it may seem to you. But if you are in physical production, then channels are very often very difficult and very complicated. It may happen that to reach your final customer, there are 3 or even more members in the channel. Like, for instance, if you are producing, I don't know, let's say furniture, then with very high probability you are selling your products to intermediates, to so-called wholesalers, and then wholesalers actually are delivering your furniture to the stores where end users, where physical customers are buying your furniture. So this is the channel, and unfortunately you should understand the way of thinking of every stage, every participant of this channel. And very often those guys think differently than your end users, and you need to satisfy both of them, the end users and the intermediates in your channels. Okay, and then of course the question how your customers want the product to be delivered. Yes, there could be different instances. Again, in the virtual services, internet is probably quite easy thing. However, you should remember that such a simple thing like streaming video first came to computer, and only later on it came to mobile phones. And as I understand, quite often nowadays videos are looked in more in mobile phones than in computers. So again, this is very important, how your customer and where and when your customer wants to get your product. Is this particular time of the day, particular place, particular season? All those decisions are very important. Okay, so revenue streams. It seems that we have customers, we have value proposition, we know how to get in touch with those customers, and we know how to deliver our service, our product, but that's not enough actually to get the revenue, because basically arranging the revenue stream itself very often is part of the product. First of all, the most important question is, whom do we charge? And sometimes it's very tricky. Let's take, for instance, Facebook. And everyone knows that Facebook is earning its money from advertisers. Yeah, those who are providing advertising and different kind of content to Facebook. At the same time, people which have Facebook accounts, they also should be treated as customers. So Facebook is in this tricky situation that on one hand they should treat ordinary people as their customers, but on the other hand, paying parties are advertisers, and since they are paying the money, Facebook should be very attentive and have the value proposition for them too. And then it is also very important, how do we charge? Yeah, basically, traditionally, we are very used to this one-time charge. We go to the shop or to internet shop and we buy something. At the same time, there are different charging methods possible, and very often your value proposition can improve significantly when you are changing the type of the charging. For instance, there is this, I guess it's Swiss company Hilti, which produces building tools, electric tools for building. And they were just selling those tools to building companies. And their business was going on. They were neither the best nor the worst. They were earning some money. And then somehow they found out that construction companies are not particularly happy. And what construction companies were not happy was the fact that those tools were get broken. They were difficult to account for because construction workers were losing them, sometimes stealing them, and it was causing real troubles to construction companies to renew the let's say the stock of construction tools and to pay for them. So what Hilti offered, they offered renting, not one-time charge for selling the construction tools, but actually renting, which is recurring charge of construction, renting construction tools to construction companies. And that actually significantly improved their business, because right at that moment they were just taking control over the fleet of the tools. They were replacing broken tools, they were replacing lost tools, and charging constant fee to construction companies for those tools. And everybody was happy. Hilti was happy because they got new business model, and construction company finance managers, can you imagine, also were happy because this allowed to them to have, let's say, good forecastable cost. They always knew that this will cost that much, and all the construction sites will have all the tools necessary. So when you are talking about your product, when you are thinking about your product, the way how we are charging customers is very important, and that very often could be the game changer. Okay, we are done with the right side of the canvas. Any questions? No. Okay, then move ahead. So the left part of the canvas, resources. It's not difficult to guess that the most important resource in every company are people, or what scientifically is called human resources. How do you think why?
They are the key part to move the business forward, yeah, to make money also.
Yeah, because people are those who are moving the business ahead, and all the knowledge and all the skills are with people. And it's also very important to have a good team. Peter Drucker, the famous scientist of management science, told that basically bad team can kill good plan, and good team can pull out very bad plan, and that's true. And I don't know, probably, okay, most probably you don't remember the economic crisis of 2008, 2009. And in very often cases, companies were saved by the people in the situations when basically everybody is frustrated and management didn't really know what to do. Then the next most important resource is financial resources, because no money, no fun, of course. And then you need to have money to pay wages to people, to buy raw materials, to buy other resources, and to get the company running. Of course, you also should have some sort of physical resources, production lines, buildings, I don't know, computers, office equipment, things like that. And it is very important not to forget about intellectual property, all kind of trademarks, patents, licenses, and things like that this very often is the resource which keeps company afloat, and which helps to protect company's business from competitors. And you always should ask to yourself, what are the most critical resources that we need to control, what we should not give away. And it is very funny that, for instance, in banking, in my favorite industry where I spent quite some time, IT is one of the most important resources. And nowadays, banks very often feel sorry that they outsourced their IT. And those banks which have their own IT feel more comfortable, because it turns out that nowadays banks are just IT companies with financial specific. So every time when you are thinking about resources, you should think what are those resources which are keeping us afloat, and we should not give away, we should control to stay alive. Okay, key partners. So naturally, what are our key suppliers and what are our key partners? And here is the difference. Suppliers are those companies which are supplying to you some sort of resources. Most often those are raw materials or some sort of equipment. Then the partners are those companies or those persons which are providing to you very often something intangible, or which are actually doing the job you don't want or you cannot do. For instance, very often key partners for many, especially small companies, are accounting companies which do the accounting. Very often there are IT companies which are key partners, which are keeping companies' IT running. So that's the difference between suppliers and key partners. And very often we depend on those partners. And right now there is a new word competition, which derives from cooperation and competition. And very often it happens that your partner is also your competitor. Like, for instance, we have Amazon and we have Netflix. And Netflix is using Amazon cloud computing for their needs. So there they are partners, and or Amazon is key partner to Netflix. At the same time, Amazon TV or whatever was the name is competing with Netflix, and so there is this strange situation when you should use services of your competitors. And here you should be very careful what you are doing and with whom you are doing, because very often there are cases when partners are just stealing or taking over your business. So always watch out who are your partners and what they are doing. Okay, then key activities. Again, there is the main question: what are those key activities which our value proposition, our customer relationships, delivery channels and revenue streams require? With the value proposition, it's pretty easy. It's sort of production. It could be physical production. It could be virtual production. With customer relationships, basically, usually those are marketing and sales activities. But those also are key activities, and every manager of every company could tell you that marketing and sales is very important to get your revenue. And the same story is about delivery channels. And then a funny thing, actually, you may ask what key activities in revenue streams, but it's also very important. First of all, if you have physical production, it's not enough that you ship your product from your warehouse. You still should invoice this product, and you still should somehow collect that money to get that money in your account, and you still need to account for that money to do the accounting. So those also are the activities which are related to revenue streams. In virtual services, internet services, actually, when you are paid very often by credit card, very often this getting your money, getting paid by credit card or by bank transfer is also a key activity, and it's important to arrange this very frictionless. So at every part of your customer relationships, your value proposition, delivery, and revenue streams, they are asking for some activities, and you should understand what are those activities and how important are those. And then the cost structure. Of course, we should know what are our costs, what are our major costs. And as I told, every part of the business model, every part of business model canvas can generate some cost. But it's also very important to understand what's the nature of your cost. And how do you think what I mean by the nature of the cost? Anyone awake?
Are they like changing, or are they always the same?
Yes. Any other good ideas? No. Basically, there are such things like seasonality of the revenue and seasonality of the cost. And very often it happens that you first you should spend money, and the revenue comes only after that. And very often the time period between those two things is very considerable. That's one thing. Like, for instance, let's say in hospitality, in hotel industry, the major season when hotels are busy is spring, summer, and probably early autumn. And then most of the revenue is coming at that time. And of course, there are some costs at that time. But you should also remember that over the low season, which is usually winter and then late autumn and then probably early spring, hotels should stay alive. They have some costs, and very often they use this time to renovate their premises. So there is a few more costs. So basically, this is seasonality of the costs. Then we also should understand, distinguish between fixed and variable costs, which is very important. But probably right now I will not lecture to you about those two costs. But you always, and should you come to business school or work in the business, you will have to understand what is the part of fixed costs and what's the part of variable costs in your business, and what's bigger and what's proportional, how do they behave. Okay, actually we are almost out of the time. This is about business model canvas. Do you have any questions? It's a good time to ask. Was it really?
What kind of business do you have? What kind of business do you have?
Right now, I don't have any business. I'm business school, but I have had basically I have had shares in a bank. Basically, that name of that bank today is Swedbank. So I was among those persons which established in '93 the Deutsch-Lettische Bank, which later on became Hansa Bank, and after that became Swedbank. And I also have had some shares in a fintech company whose name today is Fitech, but back in '99 when it was established, its name was Nationālais Maksājuma Centrs. It was sold.
Maybe you could give us some tips, because we have to make this business plan ourselves in our student companies.
Yeah.
Maybe some tips for that.
Business plan. Who is asking for that business plan?
Our teachers, our supervisors.
Teachers. Okay, it will be maybe difficult to convince them that business plan is something not fashionable today. Actually, my suggestion is that you still start with business model. You have a hypothesis about your value proposition, about your customers, and all the other fields of business model canvas. And once you have the hypothesis, once you have idea how this all looks together and how it works together, you can use this as the base to write business plan. Basically, start with the description of your product, which naturally is business, is value proposition. Go to customer segments, describe them, and then just move on with describing all those parts of the business model canvas, and how do you want to achieve the desired state of those parts of business model canvas. And this will be business plan. Of course, in the cost side, you or on the segment side or on revenue stream side, you'll have some revenue estimation. This is inevitable, even when you are developing your business model. Yeah, but basically start with the business model and then just describe in logical sequence in your business plan.
I have one question. Do you think that the coronavirus will somehow affect the customer attitude to the product or the companies overall? For example, for the restaurant businesses, will anything change in that? I don't know, maybe like attitude or the people mindset to the different products or services?
Oh. Well, if we talk about restaurants, that restaurants are, I actually don't know the pubs, or in Latvian there is this word kroks.
Oh, pubs or bars? I don't know.
Yeah, they existed even in ancient Rome. Yeah, more than 2,000 years ago, or more correctly, as long as the written history of humankind exists. So I don't think that restaurants, pubs, and institutions like that will disappear. Today they have difficult times, but basically when this coronavirus will be over, people will come back. Not all the restaurants and pubs, of course, will survive, but there will be new ones. I don't know. You are probably too young to remember 2008, 2009. It was the same story. Quite few restaurants went off the business, but then today we probably have even more pubs and restaurants in Riga.
We will all go back to a city Smigla for sure.
As it's Smigla probably will survive. Okay, any more questions? There was one question in chat, just.
Guys, remember to turn on your cameras, right? So it's
Okay, Armand's asking, is this market crash going to bounce and when? Will the stocks bounce higher or only commodities? Well, actually, stocks, I don't follow that much stocks, but as I understand, they are just bouncing up and down all the time nowadays. But basically, we should then everything pretty much depends on how long this period will continue. And I don't believe that it will continue longer than half year, and even that is my pessimistic estimation. Actually, I believe that in 3 months everything will be over, and people in the way will rush as much as possible to return back to normal. That's one thing. Another thing is we should understand that at least in Europe and North America, governments are going to practice what's called helicopter money. In difference from previous crises, governments are going to spend just unimaginable amounts of money in economy, in direct support of companies, in direct support of people. And even in Latvia, basically the smallest amount I've heard government is discussing in help is 100 million euros. In fact, the purse of the government is much more bigger. Yeah, and just if the government pours in some way 100 million in Latvian economy, it's huge kick in the ass. The economy just should fly after that. Okay.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So can you compare this crisis?
Christopher, go ahead. There's someone.
Okay. So can you compare this like crisis to 2008 one? And do you see? Do you find something similar in both?
Paga.
No.
Maris Gailītis, please switch off your mic or stop speaking French. Okay, answering to Christopher's question. Well, there are some similarities, and the first similarity is what we can call sudden stop. Yeah, basically, we've been living for like up until 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with the idea that it will not come here, and somehow we again will be on the side of events, and then all of a sudden it just dropped down like a bomb. This is the similarity. But then in my mind, this is where the similarity stops, because of government behavior. In 2008, government told that from now on everybody's on his own, and then people are just trying to survive. Right now, the government is supporting people. Government is going to support the business with real money, with real cash in the account. Okay, we can discuss that. Basically, the procedures and processes are clumsy, but they are. We hear here complaints that State Revenue Service, which is in charge of delivering this helicopter money, is applying strange procedures and principles on things of that like that. But we should also understand that the government pretty much is in crisis mood, and I've never ever seen that the government of Latvia is able to react that quickly. That's one thing. So okay, we can discuss again how this help is delivered, but this could be corrected right now on the snap. We see that government is able to do, and government is willing to adapt. Yeah. So basically, that's the biggest difference between previous crises. There is support. There is huge support, and basically, I expect that it will come back. Actually, today I had the discussion with state official, and government is actively planning all kind of activities and spendings, how to get businesses back on the track as soon as possible when the emergency situation ends. Nothing like that was in 2008. In 2008, okay, you don't remember. I remember, unfortunately, pretty much. Government was paralyzed for some moment. Basically, for like couple of months, government was working under instructions of World Bank and the International Monetary Foundation. Sorry, that's the difference. Yeah. So. Okay, I'm usually very keen to criticize government, but this time just I should keep my mouth shut.
Okay, thank you for the answers.
I think there is also, Aldis, a big difference. We are part of the Eurozone now. In 2008, we were not. Yeah, so we. All the other, you remember at that time all the rumors about the evaluation, so that this time are not a concern.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Basically, we are part of the Eurozone, and this allows us to borrow the money on completely different conditions. And the government actually already borrowed half a billion euros, and basically, the financial situation of Latvia allows to kick out 2 billion euros, which is actually quarter of GDP. And that's huge money. If that money cannot get the country going, then just I don't understand.
I have a question. I wanted to ask, like, currently I'm looking for an investor, and what do I need for him to make an offer? A business plan, presentation, and what more? Like the first is like the elevator pitch, something like that. I'm showing presentation. Later on, if he decides that he likes it, I show the business plan, or yeah, like what's the next steps after the pitch?
Well, certainly not the business plan, because if there is an investor which is asking for business plan, then this is wrong investor. Basically, you should have business model. You should be able to show working business model. Yeah, you should be able to demonstrate that you know your customer, that your value proposition is proven and it matches the customer requirements, and you know how to produce this, you know how to deliver this, and things like that. That's what investors are looking for. Another thing investors are actually checking is the team. It's the team. Basically, you should have the team, and you should have at least key competencies in your team. Like, for instance, if you are telling to investor that we are going to make an app or web application and some sort of software, and you don't have an IT guy in your team, no investor will believe you. Yeah. Or if you are in the frozen cake business, there should be someone who knows how to bake a cake and how to freeze it.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe last question before we finish.
Actually, there is, I haven't read Louis in the chat. I don't know, understand, is it a comment or the question? Just let me read it.
Okay.
Okay, Louis is asking how long in Europe this crisis could go on, and basically how the government behavior in the different countries can influence this. Oh, well, actually, it depends from country to country. Basically, it looks that except probably Italy, Spain, and probably France, other governments are doing quite good thing to stop the spread of the disease. Italy and Spain probably started acting too late. Okay, that's echo. And the most important question is when this disease will be stopped and suppressed to let's say sufficiently low levels. What is uniform and where all the governments agree in principle in Europe is the spending. Even the Germans abandoned the famous principle of sparen, saving the money. Even Germans agreed that and they are ready to borrow the money and spend this money to revive the economy. So basically, I think that in the worst case, closer to the end of the summer, basically all the governments in Europe will be on the spending track and will try to get the economies moving. I'm not very pessimistic about this. I'm more concerned about public health, including mental health, than about the economy.
Okay, I think that we could finish for the day. Yeah.
I think we can say thank you to Aldis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also thank you guys for the number of questions. That's fantastic.
It was really, really nice to see that.
Keep going like this, because this is what our faculty appreciate, that you are active. So, okay.
And really good questions, by the way. It was impressive.
Okay, thank you.
Remember to submit this one slide in the Slack. We will be checking that. And see you Friday at 2.
At 2 p.m.
Okay, see you guys.
Keep healthy, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.